pledge allegiance to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today is September 3rd, 2013. The time is 5 p.m. The regular meeting of the Greensburg Board of Works is called to order. This time requesting all cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices be silenced, please. First off, if we could, I would like to amend the agenda to add Robbins representing Main Street, Greensburg. I got left off with the schedule. We can do that.
So moved.
Second.
Harold, Robbie, second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. First item on the agenda is approve the minutes for the regular August 5th meeting. Do you see corrections or amendments that need to be made? If there isn't, I would entertain a motion to accept minutes as received. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. New minutes, Tree County Players. Mr. David Stoltz.
Good evening. Thank you. In the past, we've used the gym a couple of times for Tree County Players performances. It's really a nice place to do some of the plays that we've done in the past. This year, we want to do a play called Dashing Through the Snow. It's a Christmas comedy in 2 acts, written by Jesse Jones, Nicholas Hope, and Jamie Wooten. We've done 2 other plays by them in the past, and they're pretty humorous for the most part. So it should be a real pleasant, or sometimes maybe a hilarious thing. We'd like to do the performance on November 21, 22, and 23. That's a Thursday through Friday at 7 p.m. those evenings. We'd like to move things in the 2 weekends before that so that we can get set up on the stage, and if we need to bring additional stage materials to extend the stage, we would be able to do that, and then practice there on Monday, Tuesday, and a dress rehearsal on Wednesday before the Thursday performance. We appreciate your consideration of our request.
I've had Janet check the schedule. There's nothing scheduled for that time period. And they've always made good use of the gym before. Left it as good or better than what they received it in.
Well, I was good with it until I saw Dashing Through the Snow.
I know it.
I'm starting to reconsider.
Now this is G-rated, right?
Right. No, it's for anyone to attend.
What do you think, Board?
I'm fine with it.
I entertain a motion to let the Tree County Players use of the gym. Who made the motion? Need a second?
Second.
Steve seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Next item on the agenda is Umbaugh. You do not look anything like Andre, but John Julian with Umbaugh.
Good evening, folks. It's been a while since I've been here. Nice to be back. Got a accounting report. Summarizes the analysis that we prepared and gives background on the basis of our recommendation of the adequacy of rates and charges.
Good, thank you.
Julian, I believe we already have this.
I think they put them in our packets.
Oh, okay.
She did.
All right. Well, they're in high demand, so feel free to put those out on the open market. As I mentioned, it's been a while since I've been here. I know Andre was here previously and made a presentation on some of the analysis of the utilities. But to give you a kind of a background on how we approach this, our philosophy as we evaluate the financial condition of utilities is what we first try to do is get a sense of where you've come from historically in terms of financial operations. That gives us a feel for the trends of the utilities' financial performance. Then we take a look at where you stand currently financially, make sure that your cash balances and your balance sheet in general looks like it's in what kind of shape it's in. With that background information, it gives us a good working material to address the most important question is where are you going financially, and how does that match up with your current resources, primarily those resources being the revenues from your current rates and charges from your customers. And with that information, we prepare this report. And being good accountants and having invested heavily in the paper industry, we take that analysis and we put it over 26 pages. And what I found over the years, which was a surprise, is most people don't want me to stand up here and talk about each of the numbers on the 26 pages. Now, you could be the exception to the rule, but I'm going to assume what we might want to do is just kind of hit some of the highlights that are spelled out within the different pages and kind of lead to our final recommendation. That said, in all humor aside, if you want to drill down into any of those numbers, be happy to take as much time as you want in any of those areas. And I want to make sure that I answer all your questions. But what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is maybe point you to start off the conversation to page 5. Because this is kind of the starting point when we start looking to the future and identifying what your financial requirements are. We start with the evaluation of your day-to-day operating costs. What does it take to perform and fund the day-to-day requirements of the sewage works? And what we start with in this schedule is what you've spent historically, which for the 12 months ending December 31st of last year, the day-to-day operating expenses of the sewage works added up to just a little over $1,575,000. And there are a number of expense categories that make up that $1,575,000, and we've evaluated those expenses for the purposes of looking at how we anticipate those changing over the next couple of years. Because that is probably the single most important element of the financial plan for the sewage works is what do you need in terms of operating costs for the collection and treatment of sewage in the city. And from that analysis, we've identified over the next 12 months, we anticipate those costs to go up about $125,000. And what I would point out to you is there's an explanation of each one of those adjustments that make up that $125,000. You'll find those in the next couple of pages. But when we completed that analysis, and we were looking for not only costs going up, but there can be instances that costs have gone down as well. We've tried to account for each of those changes. But our planning number, in terms of where you were last year and where we think we're going to be over the next year or so, is about $1.7 million in terms of operating expenses. That said, there are certain things that could go on that are influenced by inflation that aren't readily available just from the analysis of the actual expenses. But inflation is, even though it's been low over the last several years, has been something that the city has been exposed to. And I think any good financial plan should account for that potential increase. And we've calculated that out to be an additional $51,000 of expense that we should account for in our financial plan. So through the analysis, we've determined that our recommendation for a good planning number for the day-to-day operating costs would be $1,751,000. So that's the first category of responsibility that you have financially, but it's not the only area that that makes up the financial requirements of the sewage works. If you drop back to page 9,
there's a second element of cost that any good financial plan should take into consideration. And that's the investment and reinvestment in capital and equipment that are essential to the requirements of the sewage works to operate. And let me take a second here and just say I commend the sewage works here, and you've done it for a number of years, and you've kind of been ahead of the curve here. This is really becoming an emphasis of other utilities where you do quite a bit of planning in terms of not only for the next year, but you take a 5-year look at what you can reasonably expect to have to invest in capital improvements of the sewage works to continue to perform at the level that you want to perform at. And so you prepare that and evaluate that kind of on a rolling basis. And this schedule on page 9 identifies over the next 5 years about $1.9 million of investments that will be made on an annual basis to do exactly what I just said, to keep investing in critical pieces of equipment to keep the sewage works functioning. And those costs are the types of, those improvements are the type that you're going to do on a pay-as-you-go basis. You're not going to go out and borrow each year to fund those. So the rates and charges of the sewage works need to be set at a level that allow you to continue to do that. And so the planning number to take care of that $1.9 million is approximately $375,000 a year over the next several years. And so that, on top of the operating expenses, we need to have those needs funded as well. Now, at the very bottom of the page, again, I commend you for your approach on this. Is there certain things that are higher ticket items or are out there and a little bit further in the planning stage that you may have to invest in that go beyond the normal type of capital improvements, that are bigger ticket items you might end up having to borrow for when those projects become, need to be addressed in the current year. And so I like the idea that you've identified those. You're not slotting them for this year or next year, just putting them out there as potential needs. And there's about over $2.5 million that are out there. So for planning purposes, it's good to know that that those are out there so that when they become immediate needs, we can take care of those in the rates and charges. But for right now, our planning need is at $375,000 of average annual normal capital improvements. So we've talked about operating costs, the day-to-day running of the sewage works, the reinvestment, investment, and capital replacement items, $375,000. That leads us to the third category that makes up the financial needs of the sewage works, and they're on page 10.
John, before we go on,
Yeah, Mayor.
the future, what they're planning on, is not, that does not, this is not included in the $375,000. Is the
Yes.
Park Road Sewer 1 phase 1 and 2, that's not.
That's not in the 375. We'll have to address those when those become a little, the timetable and the dollar amounts become a little better defined. Okay, the last thing that the financial plan needs to be able to take care of is the retirement of debt. And on page 10, you can see here, this is a list of the semi-annual payments that the sewage work is scheduled to make on 3 bond issues that are outstanding. And of those 3 bond issues, you do have a commitment from some TIF revenues to help fund those. So your total requirements for the debt, even though the debt of the sewage works, are reduced by those TIF revenue streams. And the payments on those 3 bond issues are going to run, the shortest one is the 2000 bonds that pay off over the next 8 years or 7 years. And then the 2007 bonds run out to 2028. The commitment of TIF runs out all the way to 2028. But if you look at the far right-hand side of the schedule, you'll see net of the TIF pledge that the sewage works rates and charges need to support an annual payment of about $1,131,000. And so when we look at putting our financial plan together, what we need to do is we need to make sure we have enough money to take care of the day-to-day operating costs, that 1.7+ million of day-to-day operating costs, the $375,000 to reinvest in critical pieces of capital equipment, and then about a $1.1 million annual requirement to retire the outstanding debt. And the financial plan needs to be set so those things get funded. So if we go back to page 13,
John, before we move on, please.
yeah,
So if the board understands, on the 2007 A and B bonds, those are totally paid by the Honda tip, Honda tax. Honda tax,
Okay.
the A and B bonds. And that's one goes back to 11/1/28. And the 2000 bonds, $361,000. We kind of discussed that we refinance that, we can save some there if we do it soon.
and we're monitoring that, Mayor. The interest rates have kind of come and gone, and hopefully they're coming back a little bit here. But when the market's right, you have the ability to refinance that, similar to what many people have done with their home mortgages to try to lower that annual interest cost. And we think that there was potential there to create some savings. It was a little better about 45 days ago, as we've probably seen, interest rates have moved up. Right now, we're just kind of monitoring that. When it happens, you can move pretty quickly on that, and we hope to save you around $20,000 a year in lower payments. That's our target. So on page 13, we want to bring the analysis together in one spot to compare, what do we, looking to the future, what do we think our annual requirements are in terms of dollars going out the door, and how does that compare to dollars coming in the door from current rates and charges? And so you can see, first of all, on page 13, we've broken this into two steps. The picture for 2013 and then a picture for 2014. But each one of those columns, in terms of the dollars going out the door, has the same pieces that we just talked about. And for 2013, $1,751,000 in day-to-day operating costs, about $1,130,000 to pay off the debt, and about $375,000 to reinvest in capital, for a total need in terms of dollars going out the door, about $3,257,000. And when we compare that to the dollars coming in the door, which is made up substantially from the rates and charges paid by your retail customers as well as Honda, you've got cash coming in the door at the level around $3,147,000. So this year we see a gap of about $110,000 in terms of what your needs are in the revenues from your current rates and charges. So our first recommendation is to address that shortfall by adjusting rates about 4%. And that would mean that the average residential bill would be about $31.45. That's about $1.20 per month, $1.21 per month. I think in the past, the sewage works, the utilities in general, have taken a position that they want to plan not only currently, but they want to look out to the future a little bit to make sure that not only are the rates and charges adequate for our current needs, but for next year's needs as well. And those are summarized on columns under the calendar year 2014. And what we've done in 2014 is made a little bit of adjustment for additional inflation, since we'll be putting these rates in place a year from now. And with those inflationary adjustments, the total needs are about $3,355,000, and the cash coming in the door with the 4% increase we're recommending for 2013 would be about $3,257,000. So there would be about another $100,000 gap that would need to be funded to keep the utility financially safe. And that's a 3% adjustment would take the average bill up about $1 per month. to around $32.45. So this in summary is kind of our recommendation for a financial plan. We would recommend that the city move forward with the adjustment in rates and charges for sewage works. That would be implemented in 2 phases, with the first phase effective this year, translating to about a 4% across the board increase, and the second phase be implemented next year with a 3% across the board increase.
And that should cover us for about 5 years then, you're saying?
I think, yeah, you know, whenever you got a crystal ball going out further and further, it gets a little cloudy, but yeah, I mean, that's our objective, is that these rates will take care of you in that 4 to 5 year time frame. Now, if we get into some sort of super inflationary period where we're going, you know, more than 3% inflation per year, then I think you have to anticipate evaluating this a little sooner. But that, Mayor, is our goal, is the financial plan that will take you out here in that 4 to 5 year time frame.
So in the average household that uses 533 cubic feet of water, the first year would be $1.21, the second year $1.21.
Yes, that's correct. So those are the schedules that kind of summarize the analysis and our recommendation for modifying your rates and charges. As I said at the beginning, joking around a little bit, we put a lot of detail in there, but those are those schedules that kind of support our analysis. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions on the schedules I talked about, or any of the other schedules that are in the report, or anything else that might be missing from the report that you would like me to comment on.
Page 10, you show West Texas. It's marked out. Here's the new Series B. Does not report Series A.
Yeah, I think that's what the tip level is. I think the Series B is supported from user fee revenues. That's the recollection I had, and I think that's what the numbers show.
Now, on the A and B bonds, if interest is reduced, I know this is a pretty hefty amount, but can that be refinanced?
Actually, those are.
I know that what the B bonds are, or A bonds are 0%, and the B bonds are 4.5%.
4.5%. The answer to that question is, it would depend on where the state would fall on that. Right now, there's no option. There's a 10-year period in which it can't be refinanced. And then after 10 years, we have the financial ability, we have the legal ability to do it if the state would allow us some concessions. Right now, because we got a few more years to wait till they're callable, it would be difficult to project whether we get those concessions or not.
So then we still have the bonding with Honda, what, 4.25%.
Yeah, that's out there, and right now, I guess to give you the simple answer, we don't have the legal ability to refund because they're not callable for another 3 years, 4 years.
But if the interest was down low enough, was there anything in the loan agreement that we could not refinance?
No.
Because they're just concerned about getting their money back.
Right. The issue, that's why there's the uncertainty in terms of concessions from the state. The state did give us the 0% financing for Series, I think it's Series B, or Series B, the one with interest. One of these, and there's a detailed schedule in the back that kind of spells that out. One of those is at a 0%, and the state holds both of them, both notes. And so if we paid off one, we have the legal ability to do that, but they may come back and say, if you're saving it here, pay off the 0% money faster. So that's one of the questions that we'd have to get answered when we have the ability to refund.
But that'd be okay too.
Yeah,
That would
right,
be
you'd just be
another
taking your
option.
savings at the tail end instead of reducing your current payments, which is not a bad thing.
So, board, what do you think? It's $1.20 more first year to the average household, 533 cubic feet. Dollar second year. No foreseen increases between now and then, other than these for the next 5 years, hopefully.
Now, am I correct in saying that the increase in rates were established previously in Greenburg
3 years ago.
2 years ago?
And this is the last,
It was very good, you right on the numbers.
3 years ago, what Umbaugh has suggested, and maybe 7 years ago or 8, was to a one lump sum increase right off the top, starting it out. Well, when the council that I was on chose not to do that, it was trying to skim by to do it by 3 phases of increments. And when you do that, when they said raise it 15%, we raised it 5%, you're already 10% behind the first year. And so we chose to do that, though, to try to get by. And we did the same thing about 3 years ago, Darrell.
5 to 5.
Yeah, instead of putting 15% up front, starting with whatever it was, 3 yearly increments. And with this situation here, it makes it where we will have more revenue and more of a balance in here for emergency situations and to maintain what we have. Without doing the 3 phases, you do it 2 phases. And still, the percentage is no higher. It's actually less. You see, it's 4 and 3 instead of 5, 5, and 5. So it's a lot better this period than it was the last 2. Better off financially.
And I commend you for looking at these on a fairly regular basis to try to keep those increases in that. It's far easier on everyone to do 3, 4, 5% increases than 10, 15% increases. So I think it's a good management approach to look at these regularly and do more frequent but less significant increases.
And you know, board, all this is, we all pay utilities. I want them to go up, but I don't know of anything that's really going down in today's world. Comparing, I wish we had it for the wastewater as well, but for the water, we're near the lower end water cost. All the communities that we've checked, except for the ones that we have a lot of groundwater, well water. It's a lot easier to process, a lot less costly. The water, by the way, I think is 35 cents to the average user per year the first year, 20 cents the second year.
So then mayor protocol would be, I'm sorry, Steve,
Okay, that's right. I'm just thinking that the top of that is putting more people with it and stuff. We're gonna see some more coming in from say, Hitachi.
Yes.
Delta.
Yes. Hitachi is working on their expansion, and I think there's more good news to come with Hitachi, more expansions. So, not a lot more water required, but there'll be some additional water required.
But I've seen we lost quite a bit with Delta in the past.
And Mr. Daly, you met with Delta last week. Did they say anything about any more increased water usage than what they have now without these other 160 employees? The new line?
We didn't talk about that, Mayor.
Talk about that.
Yeah, they didn't say. I'm assuming it's gonna be increased, but I can't say for sure.
We know what it was when they were at the maximum, and we planned that into the amount that we need. That will help things out too. Now, these here were based on our current usage, you know, about 6 months ago usage. And so we have not calculated on the future usage, which should give us a little bit more revenue than we anticipated here.
Keep in mind, and that's good that you're pointing that out, but we're only building inflation for 2014. To the extent we want rates to run out for another 2 or 3 years after that, you know, there will be inflation outside 2014. So that growth is one of the things that helps carry us into those next couple of years. So we want to be realistic, but we don't want to be too optimistic in building that revenue until we actually start seeing it coming in.
But we know that Valio is adding 200 employees. We know that Delta's adding 160. We know that Hitachi is adding another 100 employees. So all that does create more water and wastewater usage. And we have not put that into here. That will give us more revenue. That will take care of the inflation. We don't have to come back 3 or 4 years from now and raise them again. Hopefully, yes. And if we have the bank, if we have a safe balance, emergency purposes, and our debt commitment, the extra that you have to cover that, we don't need the raise. That's absolutely necessary. Only to maintain the bottom line.
So then protocol would be for the Board of Works to make a recommendation to council, and council in the end says yea or nay. Is that correct?
That's true. The water board only had 2 members absent. They could have done it middle of this month at their regular meeting. They chose not to because they wanted the other 2 members to understand what's going on. And I anticipate their approval at 35 cents and 20 cents in the following year. Relatively small amount increase on their side. And we would take it to the council meeting next October meeting for council's first reading. Any questions? Any concerns?
It's always a concern.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, you have the average household, and hopefully people are doing well. But there are people that are on fixed incomes that it is concern for them. But for us to maintain the business, increases have to come, unfortunately. You know, if you wish, you could wait until next month if you want to study this month. Because next month we'll have a council meeting immediately following. So whatever you would like to do.
We need a motion.
Sure.
Make a motion to approve, to send to the council for the final vote.
So based on your saying that you're making a motion to approve the recommendations of what Umbaugh has delivered to us.
Second motion.
Any further discussion? If hearing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Vote is unanimous.
My pleasure.
Good kiss method.
Okay. Mr. Brian Robbins, Main Street, Greensburg.
I did not bring any sort of 26-page document, I'm sorry. Next meeting. I got some extras.
Oh, all right. Actually, this will be quick.
Main,
Also, we already did change the agenda. We already did.
I'm here on behalf of Main Street Greensburg. Actually, first things first, we'd like to introduce to the Board of Works the next Main Street Management Director, Sarah Robbins. She's recently a graduate degree graduate from Ball State University, and as of today, actually signed the contract, so she'll be our new director. We're excited about having her. We're currently looking for residence for her, and I think she really wants to live downtown, and I think we're going to be able to accommodate her in doing that. In the past, I've been operating out of, as the director, out of my front living room, and that's not going to be an option for us anymore. So we are inquiring as to, we noticed that the front office there is dangerously unoccupied there in the city hall, and we would like, if possible, to occupy it under the same agreements as some of the other nonprofits and such that have been running from the city hall. We think it'd be advantageous to both Sarah and the organization, being close to the mayor, economic development, as well as the city engineer, and for historical preservation purposes for the commission as well as easily walking distance to downtown. Eventually, I think we all hope to have an office in the immediate downtown, but for now, for financial reasons and to help Sarah start in her position, we think that might be the best move to make.
Brian, in the future, do you see the new director working out of her home instead of in the office?
Well, we'll explore those possibilities. Right now, her home will be under renovation. We talked to one of the property owners downtown, and she will be helping to renovate one of the upper stories in the downtown, which also is nice because we hope from a Main Street standpoint that we can kind of show a before and after of what can be done to some of the second stories downtown. And we're excited that she's really open to that. We'll kind of see as that goes. There are issues of ADA accessibility and whatnot, and we always want her to have a place where we can meet. I know I used to conduct some meetings here, and Stories was used, and gratefully they didn't charge me rent there or anything like that. I just had to buy some food. And as well as some of the other locations, Chamber has been very, very accommodating with us, but particularly while she's in transition, I think here in the at least first 6 months of my first year, it'd be nice to have an office location for her and for the organization to have a presence here. But again, our first choice would be to have a site downtown, but right now, I don't think we're in a position where we can pay rent and such of that level.
Well, it's here they have to pay rent.
Well, I understand. You guys are
They got
landlords.
It's not rent, it's
Yes.
sharing in the utilities.
Utilities, understood.
It's according if it's going to be permanent, or it's going to be temporary. We have the principal's office up there, which is a relatively small office, but there's also a smaller office that I'm not sure how much they've been utilizing or making use of it. That's been since 2007.
Okay.
And I don't know what their plans are, if they're going to
Oh, okay, I know what you're
continue
talking.
their files here, things of that nature, or if they'd rather have it someplace else. If it's going to be temporary, I'm sure the board would consider letting them have the use of it for a period of time until they find another place. It'd be something to consider. But on a permanent basis, we have said, figure out what we're going to do with that space up there. And sometimes the DLGF
comes in, I understand.
doesn't say they have to use it. We have other places. There's also the option, maybe the training room there at the north end, on the west hallway.
Okay.
That might be available. Scott knows more about that than I do.
If that's the location she needs to go, we could work an agreement. I mean,
Yeah,
if we have something training in there, we would just have to communicate back and forth.
Yeah, and that isn't that often, you know, if it's had training in there.
And there is a desk and stuff in there, so.
You know, there's another place that they could go to, you know, today.
Yeah, we're more than willing to work with you guys as far as our key is for her as she comes in from, from Muncie. We can't have her driving back and forth each day. And as she moves in downtown, it might turn into a home office situation, and she, kind of mimics what the sort of thing that I've been doing. But up to that point, at least, we'd love to have her a location to where she can operate out.
And, you know, I really don't mind having an organization like that here at City Hall. We're trying to bring people together to a different organization. We have dept humanity, we have the EDC, Economic Development Corporation, we have tourism, we have the Housing Authority here, and more entities that we get to support the community, the better off we are. And you know, what Main Street does is try to maintain and create additional businesses downtown. And that is important for the downtown district.
And the city hall is still within our service district of the downtown, so
If the businesses get downtown, it feeds each other.
Brian, would you be specifically asking the board today for what, like a month-to-month tenancy or a 6 month tenancy?
It's up to their preference. We would go month to month. We would go if you require, depending on what you guys require, what the president has been set up to this point. We're fine in month to month. We can do that. We can. I know the utilities are calculated and such, and we understand that. And once Sarah kind of moves into, if it gets to the point where we feel her downtown apartment would serve just as well as an office, and she feels she can meet in other locations and such, that's fine with us. Our ideal would be to have a set office in immediate downtown at this point. We can't.
And my goal would be long term is we have classrooms down at the other end, especially being used for storage for different groups, Historical Society, Red of Life. Now we have the kids closet in there. All good organizations, and they all understand that they can be notified at a certain time they have to move out. But I'd like to see our classrooms down there renovated by the people. I said DDC, they renovated the office at room cost, and they pay a relatively small amount of rent because we go by, there's 33,000 square feet here at City Hall, and they all pay a portion of the utilities based on the amount of square footage that they're using.
I think in reference to what the counselor said, going month to month, maybe just a little too much. Wouldn't we look at, maybe, I would recommend we look at a 6 month, take another look at it in 6 months to see where you are at.
That should be fun.
That would be my recommendation as well, Daryl. I think that I think a year to year. I would hate for your organization to get locked into a year and then get 6 months down the road and she said, I've got this laptop, I can just do it all out of my office or my home, and then you're still locked in for another 6. I think a 6 month lease term is because otherwise you're just going to be back in front of here every month. And
Right.
we're doing this again.
I like everybody here.
So you like coming? You like having?
6 months would be fine with us.
I guess
I'm
we have to
just
charge.
speaking from my own thoughts here. I can't speak for the rest of the board.
By being a 6 month lease, we would be bound to charge the square footage, correct?
Yeah, I mean the same, the normal lease term that I think you could easily take what you're using for other individual organizations that are currently tenants here, and simply modify it to a 6 month term, and establish the same basic lease terms. I would be happy at the city's request to drop a lease for them to use.
And based on the amount of space you need, which isn't that great, it probably costs you somewhere from 30 to 45 dollars a month rent.
And that's fine. As long as when we move out, we can take all the copper wire too.
And there's other, things that's in the lease agreement on different things, but you can look at the lease and if you agree with it, not a problem.
Okay.
And then I would entertain a motion from the board based on what Councilman and Board Member Holding stated. Is that a motion, Darrell?
That's a motion, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Can I ask just for the record that the motion be made contingent upon reaching successful lease term negotiations with the Main Street Greensburg? Is that
That's
fine?
exactly what I meant to say, yes.
Okay.
They will have a place to put her. Put the new director. Any further discussion? Ron, do you second it?
I said,
Oh, Steve second, okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. See you around. Welcome to Greensburg.
Thank you.
When are you moving here?
What was that?
When are you moving here?
Whenever my apartment's renovated.
As soon as possible.
Keep downtown going. You want that downtown? Yep. Anything else from the board? Mr. King?
update on the house.
Which one?
One about, talking about raising,
On Lincoln Street, or Lincoln Street?
at least one.
606 Northeast Street.
We got that.
Yes, I can answer that, Mayor. Mr. Atkins went before the planning commission. They gave him permission to go about purchasing the tax sale certificate, and then gave him a relatively stringent timeline as far as what they want to see accomplished when. I confirmed with him that he had that permission and advised the seller that he had received that permission from the city. And then I am still this week trying to catch up with Mr. Atkins to see if he actually did make that purchase. Part of what the planning commission did was make that the provisions in there include that once he has purchased the tax sale certificate, he is permitted to enter onto the premises to clean it up, mow it, clean up the outbuildings. He just can't enter into the premises itself. So that's where it currently stands. He's supposed to be purchasing it. After he purchases it, he has 30 days to get it cleaned up, and then after he gets his final tax deed, which should be sometime in January, I would anticipate he'll then have a 2 to 3 month period to get it demolished and reseeded and whatever he wants to do next.
Mr. Danny,
Yeah,
you
sorry.
need to straighten up, I'll put you in the corner.
It was Chief Chastain.
I'm not threatening you either.
I do have something if you guys say.
Sir, I have a question for you as well, Scott.
Okay.
The house on Lincoln Street,
House on Lincoln Street,
has
the
it
one
been,
tore down?
has it been taken
It is
down?
down. It is down, yes. As far as I know, the tree, has the tree come down?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, everything was down. I got an email today. I thought it was actually gonna take place later in the month where I could have next month to talk to you. But a year or so ago, through District 9, we took possession of a rehab trailer that we house at the fire department. It came through grant funds. We funded it up front. We reimbursed our funds back. We now have an opportunity to get another piece of equipment to go along with that. If the grant comes through, we would be asked to take possession of a Kubota UTV, something similar to what Jeff bought a couple of years ago, or a year ago or so, whatever, I don't know. Similar to what EMA just bought. The expense to us would be insuring it. So my question is, and I'll take this before the council also, is do we want to accept that?
Put the red lights and siren on
We would put some type of emergency lighting on it to where we could use it, PD could use it, actually any department could utilize it. But then it would also be just like with the trailer, where that trailer was deployed to Henryville during the tornadoes. This would be another piece of equipment that could also be deployed out.
it. What type of insurance do you have to have on it?
It would be,
Say, it'll be some type of property in mind, but
yeah,
it's like
I mean,
So if you ran over something or done damage to somebody's property,
It'll still have the rent.
it's a small,
Right, yeah, I would say it would be just like a small car, would be something similar to that, so,
like one of the inmates got similar,
yeah, it's actually just like that.
mule, whatever they call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So, but like I say, it's the GAN or the process is taking place with the state right now. They actually sent an email today, said they anticipate having word back in 5 days. So it's actually coming a lot quicker than I
Who
thought.
maintains it?
It would be our job to maintain it. That would be part of it.
How often do you need something like that?
Depends. You know, that was a piece of equipment that, you know, back in December, you know, we couldn't get enough of them. We had to beg, borrow, and steal from all the different entities to try to find them. Again, with as many festivals and fairs and, you know, 5K runs they could be utilized at. You know, I don't know, the sky's the limit.
Is there a chance that the EMA could take possession of it, or is it not available to them?
It's actually being made available to us to coincide with the trailer that we have.
It would be very useful once the trail is put in.
Exactly. If you know, we're talking about all these walking trails, jogging trails, and all those, it would be a piece of equipment that could be utilized. Again, I've not seen the plans, but if you have, you know, trails that are way off of an actual roadway, you could utilize, you know, something like this for that.
Venture to say insurance, and that's probably like $35 a year.
I would say in the whole scope of things with everything we pay, there's probably not a whole lot to it.
I think we should before.
Like I say, it's all dependent upon whether the state approves the funding and everything, but I just wanted to I didn't want to leave it hanging out there if they come in next week and say, this is able to be purchased. Are you prepared to take it? I want to be able to provide them with minutes of the meeting.
You said purchased. There's no cost
Through,
to us.
no. Acquired.
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 Purchased is money.
Accepted.